The aspect I'm most personally concerned about is the impact on those of us who criticise what I call gender identity ideology. That is the idea that self-defined gender should trump sex when it comes to classifying humans. That seems like a very simple idea, and it may even seem liberal or kind, but as I show in my book, it is both illiberal and unkind. It is harmful to women, because women's ability to play a full part in public life requires us to be able to draw boundaries, on occasion, that exclude all men. That includes men who wish they weren't men. It includes the men who think that they aren't men. And it includes the men who identify as women. It's harmful to children, because children believe what adults tell them. Their identities are still in formation. And this is a seductive idea for many children, especially the ones who are going to grow up gay, the ones with autistic spectrum disorders, the anxious or self-harming or depressed ones, and the ones who are being abused. And it's harmful to gay people, partly because gay people are the ones who are disproportionately likely to be gender non-conforming as children and to fall for this idea, and also because without sex there cannot be sexual orientation, and it is the sexual orientation minorities who are most pressed when you substitute gender identity for sex. Now, everything I've just said is deeply unpopular speech with some people. It's unpopular because it punctures dearly held beliefs about people's identities, and I regret that. I don't revel in being unkind. I speak to prevent greater harms and greater unkindness. This idea is an idea that puts men, violent, dangerous, woman-hating, woman-hurting men in women's jails. One of them was put in Limerick prison. He's a man who has committed violent assaults and has made credible threats of rape and murder against his own mother. Under Irish law, he's legally a woman. You vanished male violence against women. Right now, a man called Cameron Dixon is 300 kilometres ahead of the first woman of the 13 participants listed in the women's category of the Transatlantic Way Cross-Country Cycling Challenge here in Ireland. Children, we're creating disease and gender dysphoria and confusion. We're telling atypical but lovely little kids that they're not just atypical and none the worse for it. We're telling them that if they don't fit in the right box for their sex, they're really the other sex. It's cruel. We have men on lesbian dating apps. We have lesbians kicked off those dating apps if they say they would never consider a man, or if they even say that a man is a man. Now, the other reason this is unpopular speech is because gender identity ideology is by its nature a linguistic movement. There is no material reality to the notion of gender identity. It's a belief that a minority of people have about themselves that is given life by utterances and nothing else. A person declares their gender, declares their pronouns, and everyone else is supposed to ignore the evidence of their own senses, their own understanding of the nature of humans, and accept that people are who they say they are. So it's no coincidence that this draconian Orwellian hate crime bill enshrines within it a circular, non-reality based definition of gender. There is no non-circular definition that doesn't depend on stereotypical expectations of the sexes, and that's here in the form of gender expression. And this movement is a movement that depends on stifling free speech, and it is the main beneficiary of the stifling of free speech. Now, I know what hate feels like. I've experienced serious death threats. There is a trans-identified man in custody in England right now for making gruesome sexualised threats to kill me and Kelly J. Keane. And tomorrow the police are interviewing me to give my statement. This is a man who identifies as a woman. He has a previous conviction for threatening another shopper in a supermarket with a claw hammer in a row because he was trying to steal alcohol. He's terrifying. That's hate. He has threatened publicly to kill me, to cut up my face, to tear out my eyes. He's threatened to burn down Kelly J's house with her kids inside, and her address is unfortunately in the public domain. And he's not the only one. He's just one of the ones who's stupid enough to do it with a Twitter handle that says his name and says where he's based, and he's already been convicted of violent crimes. That's hate. My saying that this man is a man is not hate. It's accurately naming male violence against women, male hatred of women, stating their boundaries and advocating for ourselves. It is not hate to say that men are men, that no man can become or be a woman, that a man's idea that the way he feels in some sense constitutes feeling like a woman or being a woman, that's an entirely male experience. I can't feel like I am a woman or was meant to be a woman or I'm really a woman. I just am a woman. That's not hate, it's just true, and in some circumstances it's essential to say it. Now, if I can end up as a thought criminal, anyone can. I had a job at The Economist. I used to go to Davos. I was the finance editor. I've interviewed Lula da Silva. I've interviewed Tony Blair. I was as establishment as it comes. And then one day somebody said to me, why do the kids keep saying such and such is trans? And 2 years later I was talking to girls who had had their uteruses removed at age 21 because they thought they were boys. And I realised they are sterilising gay kids in the name of progression, in the name of inclusion, in the name of an ideology. And I thought journalists were meant to tell the stories of people like this. They weren't meant to look away. So that was the day I realised I had to write a book, the day I realised that they are sterilising gay kids, and that this is a human rights abuse, probably the worst medical scandal of our generation. I'm now going to say some things that I think are about to become illegal in Ireland if this law goes through. Children should not be given puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones ever. They shouldn't be told they can change sex. They shouldn't be told that their feelings define their identities. No men, and that includes men who say they are women, should be allowed into women's spaces or sports. Being a man or a woman is entirely a matter of biology and not at all a matter of identity. It's possible we're about to criminalise these statements, and I'm not saying them for fun, let alone to be hateful. I'm saying them because to do so is essential to protect people's rights. Children's rights to be told the truth and to grow up healthy and in full possession of their fertility. Women's rights to assert our boundaries, which at times, for our safety, dignity and privacy, have to exclude all men. Gay people's rights to assert same-sex and not same-gender identity orientation. Sometimes people think that laws against speech will not affect them, that they only affect people who are unkind or careless or mean or cruel or indeed hateful. I don't say these things for those reasons. I say them because it's a moral imperative. You may not feel that moral imperative. This is what I will say to the senators. I know that everybody here does. But that's just like saying that you're the person who doesn't realise you're in a prison because right now you're not pressing up against the bars. All you have to do is move a little bit and then you realise you are in a prison, you feel the bars. My free speech is your free speech, it's their free speech. You don't know what unpopular thing you might want to say one day that you might feel a moral imperative to say one day. I didn't know 5 years ago that I would end up here telling people who call it hate speech that human rights depend on acknowledging the immutable binary reality of human sex and on being able on occasion to name individuals' sex even when they don't want you to. I will urge them again to rethink this law, to make amendments to it or to drop it entirely. Perhaps it will be overturned on a challenge. It doesn't look to me like it's constitutional or that it's compatible with Ireland's commitments under the European Convention. But in the meantime, there will have been a severe chilling effect. True and important and urgent things will not have been said that should have been said. And people, vulnerable people, in particular children, will have suffered unnecessary and irrevocable harm. Thank you.